Paul Conroy explains basic positional and directional terms commonly used by veterinary surgeons and other paraprofessional equine experts.
Okay, welcome to another video. This video is aimed at apprentice farriers. Apprentice farriers quite early on in your apprenticeship. I want to talk through one of the cornerstones of farrier theory and anatomy, and that is positional terms. Okay, it can be quite difficult when you first start your apprenticeship to get your head around some of these positional terms. So I'm just going to show you on the horse's body where these positional terms are. Sorry, they're not just positional terms, they're planes of reference. Okay. In order to understand planes of reference, certainly when it comes to quadrupeds, because the horse is down on all 4 feet, you have to imagine the horse, when we're talking about planes of reference, being stood up with its front legs stretched high into the air. Okay. Whenever you talk about planes of reference, you need to picture the horse stood like that, and I'll explain why in a moment. So, positional terms. The first plane of reference that I'm going to talk about is the median plane, and the median plane on the horse is directly between the ears, runs down the centre, down the spine, all the way out and out of the tail, and it divides the horse into 2 equal halves. So this is the median plane of the horse. So if someone says to you, can you show me the median plane? This is the median plane. Parallel with the median plane is the sagittal plane. Now the sagittal plane is exactly the same as the median plane. This is the median plane, only it describes the leg only. So the sagittal plane divides the leg again into 2 equal halves, and it runs straight down the middle, and it's parallel with the median plane, which runs in this direction here. The next plane of reference that we're going to talk about is the transverse plane. Now the transverse plane of the body runs down here, okay, and it divides the horse front half and back half. The transverse plane of the leg runs in this direction here, okay, and it runs through all the way down. If someone was to say draw a transverse plane mid-cannon, for example, transverse plane mid-cannon, then this is a transverse plane. So what you would draw is looking down over the bones and all the ligaments and the tendons and so on and so forth. Now you can see now that if this is the transverse plane of the leg and that is the transverse plane of the body, that the 2 planes don't match up. Okay, but again, if you imagine the horse stood up with its legs in the air, okay, yeah, what happens is they end up on the same plane. Okay, so we've got this plane. Sorry if we just swap round. This plane and this plane, yeah, and then stand the horse up. Yeah, you can see that those 2 planes are exactly the same. So, okay, so they're not different planes, they are actually the same plane when you picture the horse stood upright with its legs up, its 4 legs up like that. So that's the transverse plane. The next plane that we're going to talk about is the frontal plane. Now the frontal plane of the body goes through the middle of the chest and it runs down and out, and it divides the horse top half and bottom half. Okay, and that is the frontal plane. Now the frontal plane of the leg is this plane here, yeah, and it divides front and essentially back. And again, if you look at these 2 planes, by first appearance they don't look as though they're the same thing, but again, if you stand the horse up like that, suddenly the 2 planes are exactly the same. And then stand it down again, and there we have stand it up, stand it down. Okay, so the frontal plane and the frontal plane, they are the same plane. And it's a thing with quadrupeds over us as humans where we're stood upright, but it's exactly the same for us as humans when we're talking about planes of references. Again, we picture ourselves stood up like that, and it's exactly the same for the horse. So those of you who are struggling with planes of reference, always picture the horse stood up like that. So we've got, just a quick recap, we've got the median plane. Parallel with the median plane that describes a leg only, it's essentially the same plane, is the sagittal plane. On the leg we've got the frontal plane and we've got the transverse plane. On the body we've got the frontal plane and then we've got the transverse plane that way. Okay, so if we come in now and we talk some directional terms, okay, I'll just deal with the main ones first. The first one I'm going to talk to you about is a word called proximal. Okay, now certainly one of my biggest bugbears is this word proximal. I said to people, what does proximal mean? And people said it means up. Proximal does not mean up. Proximal means towards the body. So if something is running proximally, then it is running towards the body. If something is running distally, or the word distal means away from the body. So if something is running in that direction, it's travelling distally. If something is travelling in this direction, it is running proximally. It's not up and it's not down. The reason that I say that is, again, if you imagine, so if you say proximal means up, okay, but you imagine the horse stood up like that, then when it's down, proximal means up, but when it's stood up, suddenly proximal becomes down. Yeah? So proximal means towards the body, because no matter which way everything is running towards the body. So proximal means towards the body, distal means away from the body. Our next two positional terms is medial and lateral. Medial describes the inside, lateral the outside. So when we're dealing with the leg, anything medial or anything running medially is running to the inside, anything running laterally is running to the outside. So medial is the inside and lateral is the outside. So take the collateral ligaments. If I was to say, or the vet was to phone you up and say, it's the medial, the deep collateral ligament on the medial side, you would instantly know it's this collateral ligament. The deep collateral ligament on the lateral side, you would know it is this one, and that's the point of this language. So medial is the inside and lateral is the outside. So we've got proximal, distal, proximal towards the body, distal away from the body, medial situated on the inside, lateral situated on the outside. The next one we're going to talk about is the front of the front leg. Okay, this region here is dorsal. Okay, this is dorsal. Just come down slightly. So the front of the front leg is dorsal. This area here, the back of the front leg, is palmar or palmar. So we've got dorsal and palmar. On the hind leg, we've got dorsal, the same as the front leg. So the front of the hind leg is dorsal. However, the back of the hind leg is plantar. So we've got dorsal and palmar in the foreleg and dorsal and plantar in the hind leg. So they're the main. We've got axial and abaxial and adduction and abduction. In fact, I'll do axial and abaxial while we're here. Okay. This is the midline. Okay. Again, if you take the sagittal plane and take the middle here, this is the midline that runs down the middle. If something is travelling abaxially, then it is travelling away from the midline. So anything travelling away from the midline, outwards, is travelling abaxially. Axially, or axial, is towards the midline. So anything travelling towards the midline is axial, away from the midline is abaxial. Again, as you go through your apprenticeship and we go into deeper and deeper anatomy, then all these positional terms start to make sense, because they are descriptive terms to help you describe the directions of travel of some of the tendons and the ligaments and so on and so forth. So I hope that helps and clears some any areas you may be struggling in. Again, thanks for watching. If you have any comments, leave them below and I will endeavour to answer them for you. Okay, thank you.